Quaker Oats has long been a household name, but have you ever wondered about the mansion built on the oatmeal fortune? Hi everyone, Ken here. Hit that subscribe button and let's explore this house. George Bruce Douglas was born into opportunity. His father, George Douglas Sr., emigrated from Scotland and co-founded a modest oatmeal milling venture in Cedar Rapids in 1873 with a fellow Scotsman, Robert Stewart. At the time, most Americans had little appetite for oats. One wit at the time even joked that oats were fit for horses in England and men in Scotland. But the cereal business was on the cusp of big changes. In the 1880s, multiple mills combined to form the American Cereal Company, which aggressively marketed oatmeal as a healthy, convenient breakfast. By 1901, this venture was reorganized under a new, now familiar name, the Quaker Oats Company. Quaker Oats revolutionized how Americans ate breakfast by selling oats in sanitary, brand-name boxes instead of scooping from dusty open-air barrels at the local market. For the Douglas family, these developments were more than just headlines, they were the source of their fortune. George Sr.'s early cereal mill became one of Quaker Oats' founding pieces, and young George grew up watching his father turn Iowa grain into Iowa gold. After his father's passing in 1884, George continued working in the family oatmeal business until the big 1891 merger into Quaker Oats. This background gave George not only considerable wealth, but also an entrepreneurial spark. He had seen how new technology, like railroad expansion and mechanized milling, could create booming industries, and he was eager to blaze his own trail. In the 1890s, he teamed up with his younger brother, Walter Douglas, to launch a new venture beyond oatmeal. In 1894, the Douglas brothers founded Douglas & Company, initially producing linseed oil for paints and industrial use. They quickly proved to have the Midas touch, and by 1899, they sold their business for a huge profit and set their sights on something even bigger. Corn was king in Iowa, and the Douglases realized it could be transformed into myriad products. In 1903, George and Walter established the Douglas Starch Works, a factory complex on the Cedar River that churned out cooking starch, laundry starch, corn syrup, animal feed, soap stock, and more. By 1914, Douglas Starch Works was the largest starch producer on the planet, processing 20,000 bushels of corn per day and employing over 650 workers. For Cedar Rapids, the sprawling starch works became an economic pillar, providing jobs to hundreds of local families and a market for countless corn growers. But the path to industrial success wasn't without peril. Walter, for instance, chose to celebrate his success with a European holiday in 1912 by booking a spot on the Titanic, which he never returned from. And back home in Cedar Rapids, the Douglas Starch Works met with disaster of its own. On May 22, 1919, just after the day shift had left, a massive explosion erupted at the starch plant, rocking the city. The blast was so powerful it shattered windows downtown and damaged over 200 homes. Through all these ups and downs, George remained one of Cedar Rapids' leading figures, a true captain of industry in the American Midwest. In short, George's rise was the story of Cedar Rapids itself, rising from a frontier town to an industrial hub. And at the literal center of that story, set on a hill amid the city, was the magnificent home called Brucemore. Built between 1884 and 1886 by Carolyn Sinclair, the home was originally named Fairhome and boasted 21 rooms, 14 fireplaces, and almost 15,000 square feet of living space. In its Victorian heyday, local papers gushed that it was the grandest house west of Chicago. The design featured all the fashionable trappings of Queen Anne architecture, a steeply gabled slate roof, multiple chimneys and turrets, ornate woodwork, and a conservatory filled with exotic plants. By 1906, however, Carolyn Sinclair's children were grown and she was ready to downsize. Enter George and Irene Douglas, who were seeking a grand home for their own young family. In a rather charming real estate swap, the Douglases traded houses with Mrs. Sinclair. George and Irene exchanged their comfortable but comparatively modest house on 2nd Avenue plus a sum of money for the Sinclair mansion and its grounds. Thus began the Douglas era at Brucemore, and the estate got the new name it still bears today. The couple immediately set about transforming Brucemore to fit their taste and the times. They arrived in the Edwardian age, with Victorian frills going out of fashion in favor of cleaner lines and arts and crafts simplicity. To oversee a major renovation, the Douglases hired renowned Chicago architect Howard Van Doren Shaw in 1907. Shaw was well known for designing country houses for America's elite, and at Brucemore, he orchestrated a $30,000 overhaul that blended craftsman warmth with the mansion's Victorian bones. On the exterior and grounds, Brucemore grew in both size and sophistication under George and Irene's care. They gradually expanded the estate from 10 acres to 33 acres by purchasing adjoining land over the years. With more room to play, they imagined creating a true country estate, a self-contained world of gardens, woodlands, and even productive farm life with greenhouses. A guest bungalow was planned to allow visitors their own privacy while staying with a family. and to keep it all running smoothly, there were even servants' quarters to house the live-ins. Before we head inside the main house, I'd like to thank our This House supporters for making this video possible. If you would like to contribute to our research and the production of these videos, consider joining our membership program today. Now let's get back to our tour. Inside the mansion, the ornate 1880s decor was updated to a simpler yet still elegant style. The Douglases tore out the old conservatory and replaced it with airy porches on the east and west sides for enjoying summer breezes. The Great Hall, which was the grand central foyer of the home, received a dramatic facelift. Shaw installed rich butternut wood paneling on the walls and added hefty faux beams across the ceiling to give the hall a hearty, craftsman character. He also removed some of the fussier Victorian details, like certain stained glass windows and overly elaborate built-in cabinets, to streamline the look. Throughout the interior, Shaw introduced a signature motif, carved baskets of plenty brimming with fruit and flowers, as a symbol of abundance fitting for a home built on industrial prosperity. Modern conveniences were added as well. The old gas lights made way for electric light fixtures, and by 1925, the Douglases even installed an electric refrigerator, a rarity that put them on the cutting edge of home technology. Even the library was given a complete overhaul to better fit the times, with the introduction of full-height bookshelves and a sprawling plaster Jacobean ceiling to top it all off. Though, some of the cozier bits of the era prior were still kept, such as a run of half-height bookshelves where trinkets and treasures could be displayed. In stark contrast, the dining room was clad floor-to-ceiling in painted wall panels and lit by electric lights overhead. By all accounts, George was not only successful, but also widely respected and even beloved in his community. He and Irene raised 3 daughters at Brucemore, and the family was known for hosting charitable events and lively gatherings. It wasn't unusual to see Cedar Rapids business leaders debating civic improvement plans in the Douglases' drawing room, or to hear that the Douglases quietly paid a struggling neighbor's hospital bill. George himself, though often described as reserved or businesslike in demeanor, clearly had a generous heart and a sense of civic duty. He helped found the local YMCA and supported educational causes. In November 1923, George passed away at the age of 65. By the time the 1970s rolled around, Brucemore had changed hands through the family and had been in continuous private use for over 90 years. When the couple's daughter, Margaret Douglas Hall, passed away in 1981, she bequeathed Brucemore to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. In doing so, she ensured that the legacy of the Douglas family, the Sinclair family before them, and her own Hall family would live on for everyone to experience. Since 1981, Brucemore has been a historic house museum and a community cultural center. And with that, I'll turn it over to you. What did you think about Brucemore? Let me know down below in the comments section. And while you're there, make sure you're subscribed so you never miss an exciting episode of This House.